Welcome to the Let's Chew podcast presented by Gulf Food, the largest annual F&B sourcing event in the world. I'm your host, Juwaria Hirsi, bringing you compelling stories and insights to a wide range of topics in the food and drinks industry, from farming, behind the scenes, to the culinary world, and to foods we simply love to chew on. In this podcast series, we speak to people, brands, and businesses across the food and drinks spectrum to find out more about why they do what they do and how, in their own way, they're championing change and shifting the future of food and drink. Trust me, there's so much more, so listen to the Let's Chew podcast on our website, gulffood.com, and subscribe to our newsletter for the latest updates in food. Welcome back to another episode of the Let's Chew podcast. As always, I'm your host, Juwaria Hirsi, and today I'm joined by Edward Hamod, founder and CEO of Switch Foods, a plant-based meat alternative brand produced here in the UAE. After decades in the conventional food production business as an owner and top executive, Edward funded Switch Foods to help fix many of the global food systems problems by creating sustainable, healthy, and great-tasting foods locally. So it might seem like an unlikely place to open a plant-based meat factory, especially in this region where you will find some of the biggest meat eaters in the world. But Switch Foods is proving that plant-based options can not only compete with traditional meat products, but also surpass them in taste, texture, and sustainability. So in this episode, I'm really excited to hear from Edward about the plant-based meat industry, the challenges and the opportunities, and his overall vision for the future of food. So without further ado, welcome, Edward, to the podcast, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
How are you doing today?
Great.
Great. Okay, so what we like to start off with is to understand why you do what you do. So if you can just tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to start Switch Foods.
I'm originally from Syria. Been in the food business as an owner, operator, director, C-suite executive for over 20 years now. 10 of them in the UAE. I've been here since 2013. I've been operating in the most basic of food business commodities. I've been in flour milling, feed milling, dairy, grains trading, so the core of the food business. I have come to realize in the past few years the deficiencies of our food systems and the true need of making a change in the way we produce, we transport, and we consume foods. And this is where Switch Foods, the idea of Switch Foods or the vision or the purpose of Switch Foods got formed. So a few years ago, I started educating myself more and more, and actually the whole world has been educating us about the deficiencies and the inefficiencies of the conventional food system and the need to change it, whether it was due to its emissions, its waste, its health hazards, and therefore wanted to create food that is healthy, nutritious, locally produced, and most importantly sustainable, and where its conversion rate is high and we don't have waste.
Okay, so if you can tell us a little bit more about what Switch Foods is.
So Switch Foods is a food tech startup incubated in the UAE, focused on innovating and producing high quality, nutritious, healthy, delicious and sustainable foods, focused on accelerating the adoption of plant-based diets in the region to global levels. We see a region that's lacking behind in conversion into plant-based diets and sustainable diets. And we think we understand the barriers behind these lack of conversion. And we're trying to tackling them by offering a healthy, delicious food that is local and that caters to local tastes and cooking habits.
And what would you say are one of the most challenging aspects of launching a plant-based business or even a manufacturing facility?
So there are two elements. One is the product, right? So coming up with the product is very, very challenging. I know on the supermarket shelves here in the UAE or across the region, we don't have many local products. But if you go to countries like the US or Europe, you have a wide range of brands on the shelves or propositions. Unfortunately, when you try these products, most of them are not really appetizing, to put it in nice words, right?
Okay.
And at the end of the day, it's true that we're trying to have a healthy, nutritious, and sustainable proposition. But at the end of the day, we have to remind ourselves that this is a food product that people need to indulge when consuming it. They need to savor the flavor, the taste, the texture. So developing a product was a major, major hurdle. And, I hope that one day listeners will try our products and they will, for themselves, be able to experience the difference between our offering and what else is on the shelves. So we spent a lot of time, a lot of days, a lot of efforts. We did a lot of collaborations. We spent a lot of time in the US learning the tech. In Canada, then we moved to Europe. We collaborated with a lot of chefs. First, again, in the US, and then we brought these collaborations locally. We learned that, you go to an Arabic restaurant or an Italian restaurant, you can go to many, right? And they will all serve you pastas or kebabs or kaftas. Yes. They will all taste great, but they will taste differently, right? And it doesn't mean that you'll only go one. You just, consumers don't go to one restaurant. They like to change and add and all of that. So we did a lot of collaborations on the product until we achieved where we are today. On setting up a facility, again, you have the funding side that is very important. We were lucky to have a lot of investors that believed in our vision and believed in our business model, and that's very important. Track record is important. The quality of the team is very important. But then again, this is a new industry, right? So you don't have defined processes. So you gotta reach out to different, engineering houses, machine suppliers, equipment suppliers, understand the process, look at different technologies, experiment with different technologies depending on your product proposition, and design your own process at the end. And even, go and work with the machine, with the OEMs, with the machine equipment manufacturers, and alter the machines to be able to give you what you need as a final product.
So speaking about your facilities and manufacturing, the plant-based manufacturing facility, what would you say are, because you are using high-tech laboratories and you have an innovation center, what are some of the new ingredients or processes and techniques being used to produce these plant-based meat alternatives? Any specifics?
I mean, yes, there are specifics. Some that are a trade secret or an IP that I wouldn't be able to discuss on this podcast. But at the end of the day, I think the most important factor is that we combine the technology with the culinary side. We always try to remind our food technologists and food scientists that at the end of the day, we're trying to produce food. It's not software. It's not an iPhone. It's not a gadget. It's food. Yeah. People need to taste, try, and indulge. So we use pea as a base protein. We stay away from soy or fava or any other allergens that are commonly used in our space. We try to keep a clean label, a healthy and nutritious product. Our ingredients are all naturals. We don't have artificial, synthetic, or natural identical. We try to keep a very limited list of ingredients for the consumer to be familiar with these ingredients, read the back of the pack and understand what they're eating. Simple. So we limit the processed amount of food. We try to use whole foods. And then we have, the batching, the mixing, the hydration, the binding, the freezing, the forming, the packaging, in different ways. It's really the process that differs, and the ingredients. Again, I told you about. We work with different ingredient suppliers, but we try to also source as much as we can from the UAE. So we work with local farms on the major produce that we incorporate into our foods.
Okay. And are there any notable shifts or trends, because you are in the industry and in the field right now, in terms of plant-based alternative range? So for meats, dairy, do you see any certain trend that people are going towards?
So I think the consumer is more and more educated about the category in some ways, and yet the category is very new to them because the product proposition so far on the market did not appeal to the local consumer. So what we see on supermarket shelves, or what we used to see on supermarket shelves, is the generic expensive imports, right? So the burgers, the sausages, and the nuggets. We don't consume burgers as much as they do in the States, where we're importing the products from, and sausages are not part of our culinary habits, and nuggets are viewed as either kids' food or junk food, so it didn't really make sense. What we notice today is that, when you provide the consumer with products that they are familiar with, then the category becomes more appealing to them, and they start trying to educate themselves more and more. They become curious about, oh my God, this looks exactly like kebab, or like kafta, or like sujo, or like the mince we buy from the conventional deli counter. How is this different? Why is it okay? Oh, it's not soy. Why? Okay. Oh, it's not. It's this and this. So they get engaged. It's about getting them engaged and making them understand why this is good for them first, and then having them try it. So if they like it, they're like, oh wow, this tastes great. Actually, we wouldn't know that it's not meat. And then comes the sustainability proposition and the animal welfare proposition.
Okay. And what's the price point for Switch Foods products right now? They're fairly low
so
price.
localizing production has allowed us to be at a price advantage versus the imports. We're focused also as a company on growth and reach. So we try to price as close as possible to good quality, high quality conventional meat. Okay. So you can find, different retailers have different price points, right? So we are present in most retailers and all major online platforms. Our price points, differ between, I think, 18 dirhams per 250 grams to about 24, 25, depending on the retailer and the point of sales.
And in terms of consumer behavior, what are people gravitating towards with your products? Is it the kebabs? Is it which exactly are the best-selling products?
So we've only launched a couple of months ago, so we don't have long data to share, but we still see the two leading products being the kafta, okay, and then the burger, because so far, plant-based or vegan consumers have associated plant-based with the burger patty.
Correct.
They're not used to having a different product proposition. But we see kafta gaining momentum, and kebab as well. Minced, we think will have eventually the most use once people try it and see, oh wow, we can replace most of the mince that we use conventional meat in today. In the dishes where we use conventional meat, we can easily substitute it with plant-based meat, which will give you this same exact mouthfeel and taste. They just need this, initial trial. Yeah.
Okay. So what about the flavor and the texture? I know you mentioned that you're working with different chefs and you're experimenting, but in terms of the flavor and the texture of the plant-based meats alternatives, how is Switch Foods addressing these challenges to make their products more appealing to wider audience? So how do you innovate Or how do you do a little bit about your research?
We're no longer experimenting. We experimented enough.
Implementing. Okay.
We're implementing now.
Yeah.
How do we do this? So our focus is always to benchmark against conventional meat, right? Not other plant-based products. We started by benchmarking against other plant-based products, but we in my opinion, and many consumers think that we gotten
surpassed
the best. We surpassed them.
Okay.
What's important for us is because we're a meat substitute, right? We're not a vegan or a vegetarian product. We're a meat substitute. So our main objective is to reduce meat consumption, right? And you're not going to substitute meat with lentils, right? Or with chickpeas.
Correct.
Lentils and chickpeas are already vegetarian dishes, are already available in the market. So people who want to substitute meat will want to substitute with meat-like products. So we've worked with some of the best chefs, leading restaurant chefs in the UAE. We've done a lot of collaborations with head chefs and executive chefs and group chefs at, hospitality groups or restaurant chains. And our objective was always to get their input. And these are novel products, and chefs have different ideas and different inputs, and we try to, our product development team continue to learn from the different inputs that we received until we reached the texture and taste and color that we have today. And it was always this fine line between, understanding the science, yet, focusing on the culinary.
Right. And how has it been the response from the retail side?
The response has been great. It has been very encouraging in the past couple of months. We've only launched a couple of months ago. Yeah. We saw a bit of resistance from the retailer at first because they have the products in their fridges, and the category is still relatively a small category.
Okay.
But what we noticed is they all were very, were very sustainability driven. They wanted to push sustainable product. They had the mandate to push sustainable products and locally produced products. So once we were able to meet them, explain to them the switch proposition, and have them taste the product and how different it is, how positively different it is from other products that they currently carry, the conversion was very quick, and the listing process happened very quickly, and they were very supportive and excited about the brands. And we see that in the couple of tastings that we ran across a couple of retail channels so far. So, and this is very rewarding and comforting for myself and the rest of the team.
That's really good. Okay, and right now, there are a lot of kind of like climate crisis, all of this happening. But I wanted to get more about your understanding or your advice, rather, about because your prices are fairly or moderately low compared to what's there in the market. How do you think a plant-based food producer or food business can make profits while still keeping costs low?
It's like any business, right? It's not a different business. You got to manage your costs. You got to manage your supply chain. You got to manage your operation, your direct, your indirects, your marketing. It's a business like any other business. I see also, and I notice that equipment manufacturers, ingredient suppliers are leaning more and more towards innovation and work in the plant-based space because they see it as the future as well. I've heard it from many ingredient suppliers. Yeah, the conventional meat became a commodity. The ingredients we sell them the same ingredients every year. We have a forecast. It's a commodity. Here they see room for innovation. They see growth. They see consumer adoption. So I expect the more companies and the ecosystem focuses on plant-based, the lower the price of the ingredients will become. Even on the commodity side, on the base, on the peas, the more you have work in fractionation and extrusion, the lower the price of protein is becoming. China now is also shifting into producing base proteins. India's coming along, which will allow us producers to to source products from there rather than where we're doing it today in Europe or North America, which will be a price break as well. Creating a local ecosystems of growing the peas locally and extruding them locally can also play a major role in reducing prices in the future once our consumer base is large enough.
Okay. And I wanted to get your opinion because there is this ongoing debate on the topic of highly processed plant-based meat products. How beneficial are they for health purposes? Because in comparison to conventional meat, which we know it's meat, you said you do create it with peas, but is highly processed plant-based healthy?
So every food can be processed or highly processed, right?
Yeah.
Even meat, right? A lot of meat that you eat, all the cold cuts, all of that, these are highly processed foods, and they're meat, right? A lot of the burgers we see on the supermarket shelves from a lot of the leading brands are highly processed, right?
Correct.
Burger patties, because they contain soy, they contain fillers, TVPs, in order to make them cheaper. We don't talk about that. We only talk about, when we talk about meat, consumers think we're talking about, the Wagyu beef or the Angus beef coming from the super sources. It's not like that. 90% of meat that's on the market today is also very highly processed. On the opposite, switch is very lightly processed because we don't add any artificial ingredients or legohemoglobins or all these additives or any preservatives or anything like that make the product highly processed, right? So it depends at the end on your list of ingredients. A lot of companies made the mistake, or not a lot, a few companies made the mistake of increasing their ingredients list, making it complicated, using artificial ingredients, because they were obsessed with parity with meat, right? And making the product bleed, making it, like meat, making it, very red on the inside. We don't have this obsession as a company, and our consumers don't. We don't eat meat that bleeds here in this region, right? We like our meat, medium or well done, right? Yeah. From religious perspective, from culture perspective, we don't like our meat to bleed.
Yeah.
So we don't have these requirements. And even if we did, that's not something that we're going to do. We're not going to compromise our health proposition just to please aesthetic consumer needs.
Okay. And what is your overall outlook of the plant-based food sector in the Middle East? Where do you see it heading? Or where do you hope for it to head?
I'm very positive about it. I think the category has been growing in double digits over the last few years, and this without having, the right products or the right price points. So I think once we introduce products with the right market fit and at the right price point, I think we're a very young region. Our population is very young. Our population is educated, is curious. We tend to underestimate our young generation. I think climate is becoming more and more important to them. Animal welfare is high on their agendas if you talk to young kids in school or in college. And at the end of the day, their own personal health is very important. They also prefer locally produced foods. They tend to trust better the governance of food producers in the region and the governance of the governments over here. So I'm very positive in that on that aspect. I am.
And what's next for Switch Foods?
So we are starting. We have signed a few export agreements in neighboring countries.
Okay.
We're very excited
That's
about.
Exciting. Okay.
We're also looking to expand in the region by establishing local production facilities. We're in discussions for Saudi Arabia as our next production facilities. We believe in the unit economics of producing locally, so we're also in discussions of a few regional markets. We have discussions in India and Turkey as well. So yeah, we're excited about where we're heading.
That's really exciting. And this is my final question. As a speaker at the Gulf Food Manufacturing Food Tech Summit coming up in November, what can we expect from your session, and what are you most looking forward to at the event?
Well, what I look forward to is the same thing I look forward to whenever we're discussing plant-based, is just shedding more light on the category, telling the consumers and the stakeholders what we're doing at Switch, which is what we're responsible for. At the end of the day, we can't be responsible for the whole category, right? We're responsible for what we do and what we produce. But a lot of times I see that consumers have a negative perception of the category because of mistakes that happened in the past, whether it's on the health front or the sustainability front. And the consumers educated. They're telling me, Ed, we don't want to consume plant-based meat that is imported from the US or from Europe. I mean, the carbon footprint, it doesn't make sense.
Wow.
We'd rather consume locally produced meat, right?
Yeah.
So they love the locally produced proposition. So I get the opportunity to educate the consumer about the health aspect of what we do, the sustainability, without forgetting about the culinary as well. So it gives me an opportunity to discuss the category, to discuss plant-based, to discuss the future of food and the transformation and the need to transform the way we consume foods.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today in the Let's Chew podcast. So before we close, if there's anything that you would like to share with us, or how we can follow the journey, or any piece of advice or words of wisdom to our listeners, please feel free.
So, again, it falls in line with being local.
Yeah.
So we're here. Our facility, our offices are in KZad, exactly halfway between Dubai and Abu Dhabi. We have, of course, our Instagram page. You can follow us at switch_foods. We have our Facebook page. We have our LinkedIn page. We're very active on social media. We try to share recipes. We try to share ideas. We try to, break the ice between the consumer and the category. Because our product, the way we see it, is we transport it, we cook it, we freeze it, we consume it just like meat. So we try to make it as a seamless transition as possible. But we're here, we're available. We have chefs, we have sous chefs, we have a nutrition team, we have a product development team. We offer customizable solutions for consumers that buy in certain quantities. So whether it's restaurants, hotel chains, us being local, give us the opportunity to customize their product for them. So if a restaurant group wants a kebab that is shorter or longer or wider, or an airline needs a certain weight or a certain spice profile or all that, we have a full innovation center in our facility in KZad, where chefs come, spend a day or 2 or 3, depending on, give us a brief about what they want.
That's
and
incredible.
we will help develop that product for them, or adjust our current product according to their needs.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Edward. It was really nice having you.
It's been a nice conversation. I enjoyed it as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks again for tuning into another exciting episode of the Let's Chew podcast. As always, please share and leave us your thoughts. Until next time, bye for now.